Thanks. It's great to be here. I'm a little bit jet lagged, but I arrived in last night from Dublin, but I've had a lot of coffee, so I think I'll be able to get through this. So I'm the CEO and founder of GTS. We're an Irish technology provider focused on new forms of mobility, on-demand buses, and also car sharing. So over the last 6 years, we've worked with some pretty large customers. We've worked with General Motors on their Maven car sharing program. We began working with them right at the beginning of that program. More recently, we've begun working with Tata Europe, and we're working with Tata on an on-demand bus service in Europe at the moment. We also work with mobility car sharing, mobility systems and services in Switzerland. And we also, apart from our large players, we work with some smaller customers as well. But to explain our software and the ideas behind the business, I'm going to take you into the future. So we'll go on a journey into the future. So picture the future. Okay, not quite that far into the future. Not flying cars, but a world that's maybe 15, 20, 25 years from now. Actually, maybe much sooner if you live in Helsinki, from the conversation earlier. But it's a time that mobility as a service has really begun to take hold in the city. And so you have cities with less traffic, less pollution, and less roadworks. They're much better cities to live in. We've got mobility as a service, and we've got autonomous vehicles, and they've been changing everything. But this future presents some new logistical problems. We need to really begin to think about what kind of vehicles we'll need in that future. And also, if this is mobility as a service, where those vehicles will need to be to satisfy demand. So if you take mobility as a service, we're thinking about a time when people have a subscription and they're living without a car. So how do we service them? Well, to answer that question, I'm going to introduce you to Mike. Mike lives in a mid-sized US city. He lives in the suburbs. It's an area of the city that traditionally has very high car ownership. This is a part of the city that is often not very well served by public transport, and people normally live with 1 or 2 cars, or sometimes 3 cars. So how do we get this person to give up their car and start using mobility as a service? So what kind of vehicle does Mike need? Well, in the mornings, Mike needs a mobile office. That could be a shared use vehicle. It could be a bus, a mobile office bus. Now, Mike is a workaholic, and he works on his commute every single day. We've got him to give up his car by giving him an office to work in all the way there. But that's not all he needs. At the weekend, he's exhausted, so he needs a hotel-like bus where he can sleep, and his kids can watch TV as they travel. He's going to visit his mum in a neighboring city. But Mike is a traditionalist as well, and he's a romantic, really. And every now and again, he heads off into the mountains with his wife. And for that, he needs a traditional romantic sports car convertible. So you can see then that the question is not what kind of vehicle does Mike need, but what type of vehicles does he need? And the other big question is, how many of these vehicles do we need? How many people in a city are like Mike? How do we work that out? How many romantic sports cars do we need? How many mobile offices? How many hotel-like vehicles? How do we work that out? Okay, let's go back to Mike. So today Mike's not happy. So what's wrong with Mike? Well, he wants to get to work. He wants to start working straight away. But today, all the mobile offices are on the other side of the city. Mike can't get to work. He can get a sports car. He can go for a romantic drive with his wife, but that's not what he needs. He needs to work. So Mike would probably rip up his subscription, his mobility as a service subscription, and maybe choose another provider. But with us, what we're working on now is we're working on demand prediction. We're working on how you can predict the type of vehicle you need to move people around the city and where those vehicles need to be to service them. We're looking at the what, where, and when now to satisfy the needs now in a city, in buses and car sharing, and then in the future for autonomous vehicles and mobility as a service. So how we're doing that is through our mobility platform. So we begun the mobility platform with car sharing. We call that platform ShareCar. We kept it simple. And ShareCar has been used by General Motors and by a range of companies around the world. And it's a car share booking platform. At its core, it's demand prediction. So we look at where cars need to be in the city. It's kind of like Sandra's problem slide from earlier. Cars all building up in one area and not in other areas. And we look at how we can move cars around that city. We take into consideration a lot of different factors for that. We look at weather patterns. So what happens when it's raining? What happens when it's sunny? On sunny days, people go to the beach. On rainy days, they might go to shopping malls. How do people move around? And the system is constantly learning about that behavior. And we look at special events, concerts in a city. We look at where cars need to be at all times. And we're transferring that knowledge now into dynamic shuttles. So we're using the drop car algorithms to provide on-demand dynamic ride sharing for transit agencies now. So a dynamic shuttle. Dynamic shuttles basically combine our experience in demand prediction, data analytics, and then there's our powerful booking systems for customers as well. Dynamic shuttles are hailed from a customer's mobile phone. The driver has an app that tells him who to pick up and when. And then there's a back-end management system as well. We're looking at 3 different variations in dynamic shuttles at the moment. We're looking at fixed routes with no timetable, dynamic routing, and also a point-to-point service. And I'll go into more detail on each of those in a second. Dynamic shuttles are aimed at municipalities, transit authorities. They can be used with existing buses. They can be used with minibuses, shuttles. And the difference to the current ride-hailing services is that the transit authority owns all of the data. So we provide the software, and the transit authority runs everything and owns everything apart from the technology. So the different variations here are fixed route with no timetable. So that's our first version. It's our pilot version. It's being piloted in Europe at the moment. So what that does is it's a traditional fixed route with bus stops along the way, but there's no timetable. And so the bus doesn't have to travel along the entire route. It could start at bus stop number 6 and finish at bus stop number 10 if it was, a 15-stop bus stop. It only goes where the customers are, and it only runs where the customers are. And what it does is it groups all the customers together and then communicates with them through push notifications and provides them with updates on when their bus is going to be there and their exact arrival time. And the customer can track everything through the mobile app. Then we're currently working on a dynamic routing version. So that's basically the fixed route, but going off the route in a dynamic way. So if it travels from A to B, the shuttle can go up and down and off the route and up side streets if it doesn't delay the existing passengers and can still get everybody to their destination on time. And what we're doing there as well is we're comparing the journey time with taxis or other, or driving in a private car, and making sure that we're not going significantly over that time. And we're offering a cheaper alternative to the customer. And then another variation is an area-to-area service, but it's dynamic within the two areas of the city. So it can pick up anywhere in an area. So maybe in one neighborhood, it can pick up anywhere, and then it can drop off in the central business district or an entertainment area and be fully dynamic within those areas. To get transit agencies started, we offer a simulator. We analyze data and then advise on the number of shuttles that are needed. We look at pricing, and we look at the size of the vehicles that are needed, and we advise on all of that. We've found it to be the best way of getting started. Actually, yeah, I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to fly through. That's just the screen, some of our passenger app screens. It shows the passenger booking a journey. The passenger basically signs up through the mobile apps. They take a selfie, and that selfie actually becomes their ticket as well. So the driver is then, through the driver's app, is sent their photograph and their pickup point, and then they get on. And so there's no tickets needed, and they also put in their credit card when they're signing up for the service. So overall, dynamic shuttles for us are a really important step on this route to mobility as a service. They provide, easy-to-use transportation around the city that, really updates public buses and allows those services to be used again and in increasing numbers by customers. So thank you very much.